Hello and welcome to this new section of our course. So today we will learn together a very important skill that any software tester must learn during his journey to be an expert in software testing. This skill is test scenario writing. You might hear a lot about writing test cases, not test scenarios. So why are we writing now test scenarios, not test cases? In the following sections, we will understand the difference between test cases and test scenarios, and we will discuss together what are the situations in which test case writing is considered as a better fit for this project, and also what are the situations in which we just write test scenarios and don't write test cases. So first, what is a test scenario? So the test scenario is any functionality that can be tested. We also call it a test condition or a test possibility. I know that many resources differentiate between the test scenario and the test condition, but my opinion is that there is no difference between test scenario and test condition. We can consider both of them as the same thing. In order to test the software in a good way, you should put yourself in the end user's shoes and figure out the real world scenarios and use cases of the application under test. So for example, I'm testing a registration page. What are the scenarios that the user is expected to go through? I should test those scenarios. I should document them in order to cover as much functionality of the software as possible. In order to create test scenarios in a good way, we can go through many steps. First, we should study any document that we have. Okay, in some projects we have something that's called BRS, Business Requirement Specification. Or we might have the SRS, the Software Requirement Specification. It might also be called FRS, which is Functional Requirement Specification for the system under test. Some projects don't have written requirements. In this case, we might review the design of the application. If we have a prototype, the prototype might be the source for writing our test scenarios. Also, if we have an older version of the application itself, this old version can be considered also as the test basis for writing our test scenario. Then we begin to isolate those requirements. We begin to think, okay, we have registration, we have login, we have adding items to cart. So those are the requirements inside our application. After this, we begin to enumerate or list our test scenarios, and we try to cover all user flows inside our website or application. And then we create something that's called a traceability matrix. We need to have something that's called bi-directional traceability between our test scenarios and our requirements. For example, I am now inside a test scenario. What is the requirement that this scenario I should write down the name of this requirement? While my project is progressing, there might be some changes in the requirements. So if a requirement has some changes, in this case, my role as a tester is to go to the linked test scenarios and edit them. I should update them in order for them to still fit the new requirement. Then we can review the scenarios by a supervisor or a team leader. This doesn't happen in all projects. And also we should prioritize our scenarios. What are the most important scenarios? What are the critical scenarios that must be executed? And what are the less important scenarios which if we don't have enough time, we might skip them in some iterations or some releases because the delivery is tomorrow. So in this case, we don't have enough time to test all those scenarios. So now we will begin writing our test scenarios. What are the tools that we can use? Should we write our scenarios on a paper using our pencil or in Word format or Excel, Google Sheets? What is the best tool to write our scenarios? Well, there is no specific answer to this question. We cannot say that this tool is the best tool to write our test scenarios. If you work inside a company, mostly they will have a test process and they already have a tool that you should use. And believe me, no matter what tool you learn inside this course, you will be able to use any tool that you see. So in our course, in this section, we will use Trello. I used it a lot in my projects, in freelancing, in part-time and in full-time projects. It is very simple and it gets the job done. But this doesn't mean that you are not able to write test scenarios on any other testing tool. The most important thing here is how to think about test scenarios, not how to use the tool. Using any test management tool is extremely easy. So in the next video, we will sign up to Trello, create our board, and set up all the steps required to write our test scenarios, then begin to write our first scenario.